Hi, friends. This is James and Kara, and we are Kerouacs Cruising.
We are taking you on a journey, traveling the country with our dogs and finding remote places where the dog
And us.
can roam free and play while we discuss life's growths, beauty, and some struggles along the way.
We recommend pairing our episodes with our blog at KerouacsCruising.com, where we organize accurate information in an easy-to-follow format, removing all of the conversational goodies.
The link for this episode's blog post is in the show notes.
We encourage you to join the conversation by commenting where you listen, engaging with us on Facebook or Instagram at Kerouacs Cruising, or email us at join@KerouacsCruising.com.
In the meantime, thanks for tuning in. Sit back and enjoy the journey.
All right. Good morning, friends.
Hi, thanks for joining Kerouacs Cruising. Today we have a special guest, Morgan Smith. Thank you for joining, Morgan. Tell us a little about what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a middle-aged bald dude who really enjoys something strange called kava. Kava is a plant that's been growing throughout the South Pacific in countries like Fiji and Hawaii for about 3,000 years. Traditionally, it's been used to kind of connect people with one another and relax, and kind of chill out and hang out. And all the different cultures have a different way of consuming kava and kind of what they like about it. And so I'm just kind of a kava nerd, and I own two companies that are focused around kava. One is called Kalm with Kava. We're based in Phoenix, Arizona, and we import kava from these different countries. And then I also have a farm on the Big Island of Hawaii where we grow kava along with other things like taro and sugarcane and lychee and banana and all sorts of other things. So that's who I am.
I love it. Thank you so much. So we, in getting ready to talk to you, we were thinking about what we know about kava. And so I would love for you to talk about kava and what it really is. Our one experience with it was years ago. We were going to Florida to visit his son, and his son's like, "You need to try this." And we were partying, and so we were probably hungover, probably dehydrated, probably buzzed, and we tried kava, and I think I started to feel nauseous, and I was like, "Oh, I don't like this stuff," and I never tried it again. But I didn't give it a. I didn't know what it was. I was just like, "Okay, let's drink this tea," and I definitely was not trying it pure and clean. So I definitely doing the research and preparing to talk to you. We're both more interested in. So tell us about the benefits of kava and all of the things that you're passionate about.
Yeah, so I'm a manufacturer of kava, right? And so a couple of things. The first off is I don't really want to be a sales guy because I feel like kava kind of speaks for itself, but also I can't actually give you medical claims, right? So I'm registered with the FDA. I'm a manufacturer with the FDA. That means that I cannot state that kava will help with XYZ, right? In terms of like actual medical issues. What I can do is I can say that kava has been used for thousands of years as a way to unwind, a way to relax, a way to have a little bit of a social lubricant. Something where traditionally it's been used to settle disputes. It's been used to, I kind of liken it almost to like a Polynesian peace pipe in a way. There's a lot of times where people will, if you want to do a business deal, if you want to you have a political issue you got to deal with, you want to go, marry the guy's daughter next door, you bring in some kava and you talk it over, right? It's something that it's going to calm people down. It's going to really take a moment and step back and maybe feel a little bit like you're on an island on the beach. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
I love that. You just mentioned culturally, and you had in our pre-discussion talked a little bit about how that's what made you fall in love with kava. So I would love to hear about some of the cultural uses or cultural traditions around kava.
Yeah. So first things first, I'm a white guy. My ancestry is from 75% of my DNA apparently is from the British Isles, right? So I've got a lot of English in me, a lot of Scot in me, a little bit of Irish, So I am certainly not Polynesian. I'm not Melanesian. I'm not Micronesian. I want to make that abundantly clear that I'm not an expert in their cultures or in their ways of life. But I have experienced a lot of those cultures because I've traveled to countries where kava first started, And I've seen firsthand how they prepare it and how they consume it in a lot of different ways. I'm really great friends with a lot of Polynesians. Just last weekend, I was hanging out with a bunch of Tongans, and they're a wild bunch. Tongans, when they drink kava, they will drink it for legitimately like 12 hours
Oh
straight.
my god.
One time I was hanging out with some Tongan guys, and we started drinking kava around 7 o'clock at night, and I left at 3 in the morning because I'm an old man. And when I texted my buddy the next morning, I said, "Hey," it was about 10 o'clock. I said, "Hey, how late did you stay?" He texted me a picture. He was still there drinking kava with his buddies, and they all went home around noon the next day. So it's just kind of like, that's one kind of piece of it. When you talk about historically, though, kava first started in the island nation of maybe Vanuatu or the Solomon Islands. So that is west of Fiji. It first started out as a wild plant, and that wild plant, they must have tried some of the roots of it and kind of liked how it felt. When you chew on the roots, it makes your mouth numb. Or when you drink the kava, it makes your mouth numb. It's because of one of the primary compounds is called kavane. So when you go to the dentist and you get Novocaine, right? Similar kind of a thing going on. Kavane will numb your mouth, and it's also what produces some of the euphoria that you feel when you consume kava. So they must have tried some kava root, wild kava, and liked it, and they continue to take cuttings. They basically take the stem of the plant, and they would take a portion of that and plant it in the ground, and that would grow a new plant. And over time, it made the plant sterile. So that means that it cannot reproduce on its own. It doesn't have seeds. The flowers, they have flowers, but the flowers don't do anything. They're purely ornamental for
Wow.
whatever reason. But that also means that it's been 3,000 years of humans inventing this plant. Without humans, kava would not exist. So throughout this time as a canoe plant, and it went from island to island, these different cultures decided that they liked different characteristics of different types of kava. So they would grow it in an area. The soil composition is different. The weather is different. The way they consume kava is different. And so they liked certain uh, variations of it more than others. So earlier I was talking about how Tongans, they like to drink it all night long, right? And their kavas are less sedative than other kavas. So in Vanuatu or Solomon Islands, it's very sedative. You drink it very thick bowls of kava, and you drink just a couple of them, and you're ready to eat some dinner and go to sleep. Um, Very different kavas, right? Those kavas are very sedative. And so, when you talk about the culture of these different islands, it really varies on what type of kava they planted, why they planted it, and then how they actually, consumed it. So in Vanuatu, you've got these, they call them nakamals, which are basically like a village community center, where every night, I was on the island of Pentecost a couple of years ago. Pentecost is it's a very narrow island. It goes north to south, and it's a very small island. But they consider themselves the first people to ever really have kava. Now, whether that's true or not, I'm not going to weigh in on that. But the Pentecostal Islanders, they get into their nakamals. There's a ceremony around how you introduce people that are in the group that's consuming kava. When I was there, they had the chief speak at first. They had um, some sort of a prayer, if you will.
Mhm.
And they had me speak as well. And so they had a certain like formal ceremony of here's all the steps that we have to do before we make the kava. And then they made the kava, and they did that by grinding kava root into a piece of hibiscus. And so they would do it with their hands. They would kind of like, they would kind of grind it into their hand, into the hibiscus bark, and the kava root would kind of fall down onto this board. And then they take that and they mix that with a very little bit of water, and you drink it. And you really only need 3 or 4 cups of it in order to feel a lot of the kava experience. That's like the Pentecostal Islander way of doing it,
Yeah.
is they grind it with coral and drink a very concentrated form of the beverage.
Wow.
So listening to you just a little bit, there's actually different strains of kava, and then it doesn't grow from a seed. Is it like cloning? 'Cause I've
Mhm.
cloned plants before. So is it like cloning and then you're putting it in different dirt?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, basically you have these stems, right? And it's kind of like your finger, right? Where you have your knuckle, right? The knuckle is where the roots actually stem from. So they cut on the sides next to the knuckle, and then that knuckle is put into dirt or moss or something like that for it to root. Once it roots, then you put it in some dirt, and it'll grow a brand new plant.
The
Yeah.
only way this thing survives. That's pretty cool.
And,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it really is an invention of people. They've been doing this for a long time.
yeah, that's crazy. And what's the different strains like? More potent, organic, or not organic? Or can you talk about that a little bit, the different strains?
Yeah, so when it started out, wild kava produces much like a very nauseating effect. You mentioned nausea earlier, right? Wild kava, and then what came from that was something called medicinal kava or 2-day kava is what we call it now. Medicinal kavas or 2-day kavas produce more nausea. They're much more sedative. They definitely, you're going to be sitting on the couch and you're not going to drink much of it, right? You're going to drink one or two of those kind of servings and you're done. What most people drink today are what's considered a class of noble kavas. Noble kavas. So as time went on, right? The families that were planting this, they likely said, "Boy, that kava that we drank last night made me sick. I don't want to plant more of that." Right? But then they drank a different one and said, "Ooh, that one did not make me sick. I'm going to plant more of that." Right? So they took a cutting of that and they kept doing that over and over again. And so now there's over 100 different varieties of noble kavas that you would drink that you could drink daily. And indeed, they do have different effects. So some of them, it's kind of like marijuana. I don't really liken it to marijuana just because it is a different experience completely, and it's not something that is. I don't feel like it's a very good parallel, but it is true in a sense that some are more sedative and some are more euphoric,
Yeah.
right? All of them will be sedative, all of them will be euphoric, but it's just a matter of which side of the spectrum that plant is on,
Gotcha.
right? So if you start in Vanuatu and then you go east, right? Vanuatu varieties are going to be much more sedative. The further east you go over towards Hawaii, those ones are going to be more euphoric than sedative.
Got it. Got it.
Thank
You.
you.
I love that. So I'd love to
Yeah.
talk a little bit about how you got to being the CEO of these 2 companies, your journey essentially, because nobody just wakes up one day and is,
I was
you have to get there. And so I'd love to hear about, what got your passion in this direction and really how you built these companies.
Yeah. Great question. First off, back in about 2012, 2013, I was very stressed out. I was working in technology. I was a programmer for a while. I was a business analyst, a project manager. I did all sorts of different things, and it was always very stressful. And my wife and I had just had our second child, and I was very stressed. It just had a lot going. I was working 80-hour weeks and had a family to deal with, and it was just a lot. And so I went to my doctor and I asked if there's something that could help me out with that stress. And she said, okay, well, take this SSRI, and then that's going to take a couple weeks to kick in. So in the meantime, take this benzodiazepine. You can take this, and whenever you have like a panic attack. And so I was sitting at the office one day, and I had one of them and a benzo, and I don't remember what I did the rest of the day. I was driving coworkers to lunch, and I was doing all sorts of different things and having phone calls, and it was, not a good thing. I I must have driven home because when I came to, I was at home, and I thought, whoa, like that's not cool, right? If I ever had to take my kids to the hospital and I was on this stuff, I would have done it, and, it would have been a bad thing for me and for my family. And so I decided that I needed to find something else that would work for me, and I tried a whole host of things that worked to some way or another, but didn't really kind of hit the mark for what I was looking for. Kava is the one thing I tried where what was advertised was real. And it was something that, gave me an effect that I could physically feel immediately upon taking it, and something that long term wasn't going to get me addicted to it, something that wasn't going to turn me into a zombie. I was raised in a very religious household. And, to this day, I still really appreciate that. Something that was drilled into me was that you don't want to be a zombie to something that is a substance. It turns you into a zombie. You don't want that. Kava does not do that. And so that interested me a lot, but I couldn't find good kava. Back then, it was difficult. There was only a handful of people that were importing kava, and the kavas that we had here were just not that good. And it's farmed in countries where we just don't have the infrastructure, or they don't have the infrastructure like we do, right? They don't have clean water, they don't have electricity, they barely have roads in most of these places, right? And so you're dealing with products that if you don't treat them properly in a jungly rainforest environment, that bad things can grow on it and it can potentially get you sick. So if you don't process it correctly, if you don't test it in a lab to make sure that it's safe, bad things can happen, right? And so I looked for the best suppliers and I couldn't really find a whole lot. So I started a small kava company called Cactus Kava. Cactus Kava was successful, but too successful for me, and I sold it. And then I became good friends with a guy named Mike Munsell. And Mike Munsell he founded Calm with Kava, the company that I currently own in Phoenix here. And Mike was a great friend of mine, and he and his wife would come down to Phoenix all the time. They were up in Montana, and we'd go out to concerts and we'd hang out. The boys would drink kava at home while the ladies went out and had a fun ladies' night. And that's kind of our relationship. It was just a great friendship, and I worked with him a lot on different kava projects. And then in 2020, Mike passed away, and it was really like a terrible time. It was one of those situations where my kava guru, was gone. And I looked to him for a lot of information. He was always the guy that I would always call and say, "Hey, what does this make sense?" Or like, "What do you think about this?" Da, da, da. He was always the soundboard that was like the logical one, the one that could really help me understand kava or the culture around it or whatever it was. And so when he passed, his wife and I started working together, and she at one point said that she was going to shut down the company because she has a lot of health issues and she just has stuff going on. And I said, "No, you're not. Like, Mike's already gone, but I can't let his company die. I can't let his baby die." And as well, right? And so I bought the company and I moved everything down to Phoenix. And then he also had a plot of land in Hawaii where he was growing about 100 different plants. And so I bought some additional land in Hawaii near where his plot of land was. And now from his 100 plants, we've created about 15,000 plants. So, that's how I got into this. It's a very, kind of short version of 12, 13 years of
Yeah.
kava stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So to ingest kava, I know just surely there is that you drink it, but is there other ways? Do you dry the root and smoke it? Is there a concentrate that like a pill that you can take, or is it mainly just a drink?
So kava can be consumed in a couple different ways. First off, it is mainly absorbed in the mucosal membranes of your mouth and your throat. It also, of course, is absorbed in your intestines. But when you talk about different types of ways to ingest it, smoking, definitely not. At least I've never seen it, and I would not do that. I would not vape it. I would not do anything like that. There are some companies out there that do make some kava vapes and things, but um, there's been no science on that at all.
Right.
And traditionally, it's never been smoked. And so I just have concerns, like health concerns for people that do that, because you just don't know what is going on.
Yeah.
And especially long-term impacts, right? What we do know is that the traditional methods of consuming kava, where you take the root, whether it's freshly harvested or dried, You grind it up, and then you put it into a strainer bag, and then you add some water to it, and then you kind of massage the bag in the water, and the starches that encapsulate the kava lactones, which are the main active compounds of kava, are released into the water, and then that creates a like a suspension. It's not a solution like coffee or tea would be. That's why every time you make kava, you have kava that kind of settles down to the bottom of the bowl. You have to stir it up, and then you drink that resulting beverage. And so that's the traditional way of doing it. There are extracts that we make as well. The extracts are not as efficacious as standard uh, powders. They give you some of the feeling, but not the full experience of kava. I always tell people, like, I offer extracts for people that want to kind of get into it, but are nervous about preparing it, or maybe the flavor of it is a bit too rough for them because it tastes. Actually, very curious how you guys found the flavor, but the flavor is very like piney and bitter. In fact, kava in Tongan means bitter, and so that's it's not the flavor's not for everyone, right? So we do
Yeah,
make some extracts, and so we do make some
I
gummies.
think it was gussied up. I mean, it was in Florida, and it was like, you're, walking into a coffee shop kind of place. So I think they gussied it up a little bit to flavor it up, but I don't remember loving it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you don't. I feel like most people that start drinking beer also don't really love the flavor of beer
Yes,
either,
it's
but they
true. It's the
eventually.
truth. Yes.
Now
You
does
don't
the
drink it for the
water
flavor in the beginning.
yeah.
Yeah.
Does the water have to be hot or cold, or it does not matter?
Doesn't really matter. I like to do it kind of room temperature, maybe a little bit warm, and then cool it down with some ice.
Nice.
Very
Nice.
good.
I love that. I feel like just in you reaching out to us, I'm like, I need to try kava in my life again. Now that I'm
Send
in
me your
the
address.
place.
I'll send it out. Nope, no worries at all.
I
We're
think
I'd
pretty
we'll
love to have you
close.
take
try
Our
it.
you up on
address
that.
is pretty close in
Yeah,
Flagstaff,
well,
so
yeah.
we definitely
Oh, well, if you ever come down to Phoenix, you can just stop by the warehouse.
See
I'd
you
love to have you.
Thursday.
All right. Sounds
It's
good.
not
Will
even
you
a
be in
joke.
Phoenix for a while?
we
We're
are
in
coming to
Bullhead
Phoenix.
City right now, and we're, going to Phoenix Wednesday night into Thursday.
Okay. All
So
right.
our
Well,
house
I might not be there. I'll be there on Friday. So
Oh,
if you want to plan on that, I'm in.
that's funny.
our house is, by the Grand Canyon South
Yeah.
Rim. We don't get mail out there, so our mail goes to Flagstaff. But we're in Bullhead City just trying to get
Escape winter.
escape the winter, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So recently, researching you, and it has nothing really to do with your company, but a lady opened a social club in New York City to try to get people to come socialize without alcohol or substances like that. And she is promoting kava as a social drink for people to come listen to music. She actually has board games she's playing. And it's just given people that do not want to intake alcohol to be social. And she's introducing kava to be social. And it's like one of the first social bars in New York City without alcohol, and the lady said she's doing really well. Just opened.
Hmm,
You
that's
believe that
great.
it's a social drink in that aspect? Because everything I heard, it's like a ritual, but it sounds like people are gonna start using it socially like an alcoholic drink.
So yeah, I mean, look, like I think that I mentioned earlier that the Tongans I was hanging out with, that it is a very social thing. It's an incredibly social thing, right? So certain types of kava are specifically meant for that, right? And so like Tongan or Fijian varieties are really good, or Hawaiian, they're really, really good for social kind of events. We talk a lot about the ritual. I talk a lot about the ritual just because I don't want people to like, I don't wanna separate the plant from the people,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's very important that, I don't represent them, but I also wanna make sure that I make sure people understand that their culture is a part of this, and that we can't necessarily just forego it, right? Because the plant is the people, and the people are the plant, and so, yeah, so I think that it absolutely can be a social thing, and, I find it to be a good time too, right? Because it what it does is it makes it easier to talk to people, but it also doesn't get you out of your mind, right? Captain Cook, he had this guy with him, sailing around the world, and he was drawing like plants and recording what all the different types of plants that they found throughout the world. And so he was one of the first. Actually, I think he was the very first Western, person to document what kava was, and they called it grog, or like an intoxicating pepper, right? Because it comes from the piper family, which is pepper.
Mhm.
But the problem, though, that I have is that grog implies alcohol, but it's the only thing that they could use to, you know, relate to it, right? They had nothing else that was close to it. So they called it grog, right? But it's not really grog. It's kava. It feels different. It tastes different. It's completely different.
Yeah.
And when you call it intoxicating pepper, it sounds something like opium or something.
Yeah.
That's not the case at all either, right? Kava is not gonna. And I so the reason I bring that up is because it's gonna make you have a good conversation, but it's not gonna make you forget what's happening that night. It's not gonna make you forget about your problems and your worries and your struggles, but it is gonna help you get through the day.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I love that because there's a big conversation. I think it's a beautiful conversation around that kind of peer pressure that goes around alcohol. Like me, for example, I've been trying to slow down my drinking. I realize, it's not good for my body. I'm trying, all of the things, just
She's
a
been doing
personal
amazing.
decision. But then when you go socialize with some of your old friends and whatnot, the people in your life, they're like, oh, please have a drink with me, and they like really pressure you into it. And it's like, but I don't want to. And then a lot of the time you're like, oh, well, what the heck. So I love the idea of having almost something else to kind of almost be like that crutch in those moments. Like you can let go of the tension around the fact that you're the only one not drinking, and I don't know. I don't want to say, fake it like, oh, well, I've got my cocktail right here, but kind of, I mean, it just kind of takes the pressure off and that makes you feel a little bit like you're on the same level as everyone else almost, if that's what you want. Or I have totally introverted social anxiety, which is hard to believe with a podcast. But if you were sitting right here in person, I would have such a difficult time keeping the conversation going, for whatever reason. That's so difficult
Mhm.
for me when I don't know people. So having that kind of social lubricant essentially that it sounds like, I know you can't make any claims, but it's more healthful than it is otherwise is really beautiful.
Well, that is one of the
Yeah.
questions. What kind of side effects? Does it give you like a hangover in the morning, or if you consume it, can you consume too much? Because you said these guys were doing it 10 hours, and we have not experienced it. I can't say we
We've had
experienced
one.
it.
We've had one
So I'm going
years
to
ago.
experience it. So what can you say about, for our listeners, is there a hangover effect or anything like that in your experience?
Yeah, so, most kavas these days are noble kavas. We talked about that earlier. Earlier I said 2-day, and 2-day is a pidgin, right? So, like, pidgin English, in Vanuatu, it literally means 2 days. So, those types of kavas you feel for 2 days, like a
Oh,
hangover,
got
right?
you.
But most kavas on the market today, it's illegal to export 2-day kava from Vanuatu
Got you.
unless the people asking for it. Like, if I was in the US and I asked my suppliers in Vanuatu, "Can you give me a 2-day kava?" Then they could send it. But if I don't ask for it, they cannot send me 2-day kava, right? So, generally speaking, it's all noble kava on the market right now anyways. And so there should not be a hangover. I like to wake up every morning and work and take my kids to school and things. So, if kava did that to me, I would not like it, and I would not be selling it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So, if you were to say any negative effects of kava, do you find
Mhm.
anything negative about consuming kava?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that you should be aware of. So the first is that if you look at old stories of Hawaiian chiefs long ago, um, uh, they would kind of show how I don't know if wealthy is the right word, but kind of powerful. They would say that they would have this dry skin, very scaly, dry skin, and it was because they were powerful enough or wealthy enough to just sit around and drink kava all day, and that gives you dry, scaly skin. So if you're susceptible to having very dry skin and you drink a lot of kava, you'll have even drier skin. In fact, it was a remedy in a lot of these island nations, or if you had a skin issue like acne or something where it was a problem with your skin, the prescription would be to drink a lot of kava because it would help dry your skin out, and it would kind of like slough off your dead skin, right? So it's kind of gross to talk about, but that's kind of the number one thing. There are some other issues that could pop up. A lot of people talk about liver issues with kava. I don't believe those to be true at all. Um, it's one of the first things that you'll read about when you search about kava. It stems from 25 years ago. There was one German pharmaceutical company that bought kava from one from one farm on one island, and they extracted that kava, and then it made uh, a couple people die, like 3 people die, and about 100 people sick. And all of the liver issues that you see today online warning about that are from that one company, from that one product in that one country buying from one farm. And so I think that there was some adulteration in that kava and that they didn't lab test it. And so there's the whole story there if you want to get into it. But basically, I don't believe the liver stuff to be true at all. The World Health Organization has put out multiple studies about it, one in 2007, one in 2016. In 2020, they made kava to be recognized as a food globally. The FDA used to sit on that board, and they also agreed, indeed, that kava is a food, and they still consider it to be a food today. And so the liver issues are not really something that you should be concerned about. If you have issues maybe with your kidney, you're drinking a lot of water, you're drinking a lot of fluid with kava. Sometimes that can cause issues, but it's rare, incredibly rare. The only other thing would be I would watch cholesterol. It's actually related likely to the skin issues I was talking about. It will likely raise your cholesterol slightly. So those are the main concerns. But
Less than alcohol.
I mean,
Significantly.
yes. If you look at, so Australia actually released a really, really impressive. It was called I think they called it a drug harm rankings index or something like that. It basically had alcohol at like a 98, right? It was super hepatotoxic, tons of issues with your liver, uh, your likelihood of getting cancer, whether it's tongue, esophageal, stomach, bladder, I mean, tons of different cancers, tons of different liver issues, tons of all sorts of crazy issues. And then you look at kava, and instead of it being 98 like alcohol, it was literally at a 2. It
Wow.
was the lowest ranking harmful substance out of anything that they had on there.
Totally opposite.
There's probably 50 things that they were
Yeah.
looking at, and kava was at the very bottom. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's a perfect study. That's the study that you wanna show people. When I did look at Kava a little bit, it did bring up the liver thing, but as I researched it more, it said just like you said, it was that one instance for the most part. And they say it
Yeah.
also can be what you're mixing it with, that could be the liver
Yeah.
problem. So,
It could be, yeah. That's one of the things that the FDA talks about is because there just hasn't been enough studies done on kava. It's a natural product, so companies can't synthesize it and they can't like make money off of it or patent it. So we don't know as much about it as some things. There is the chance that if you mix kava with other things that it could cause problems. I haven't personally seen that,
Yeah.
but I don't know, right? We don't know. So I probably not would not mix it with all sorts of other random substances. I
Right,
certainly
right.
wouldn't combine it with alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
with that, I mean, you kinda touched on it a moment. I mean, you're dancing in a world of the alternative, right? I mean, it's definitely by no means mainstream. Most people have seen a shop that says Kava on it. Most college towns have a Kava spot. Um, but it's still I mean, again, we had one time, and it's never been in our circle since, with the exception of you reaching out. And, so you're dancing in this alternative world, and then, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not something that you can patent, so there isn't a lot of science. So how do you work through something that I mean, you're clearly very passionate about the topic, very passionate about the substance, very passionate about the culture and the history around this product. How do you, I guess, push that passion to and get it out there to the world, you know? I really don't know what I'm asking.
I can answer it.
Okay,
That's fine.
beautiful.
I mean, look, obviously I love kava, right? And obviously I'm financially motivated to talk about kava, right? But it how I got here was because I just liked how kava made me feel. And I feel like it helped me get through some tough times. And I feel like a lot of people around the world are looking for something that can help them get through tough times without having the long-term effects that a lot of these either pharmaceuticals or other substances provide.
Yeah.
My wife is a nurse. My brother is a doctor. I believe in Western medicine, and I think that it has its place. But I do think that there are certain times where Western medicine just won't really fit the bill, and they just don't do exactly what you want it to do. And so I just want people to understand that there are alternatives out there for different things. And I think that you should listen to your doctor. I think that you should listen to all the medical staff out there that tell you to do one thing or another. They're smarter than me, right? But there is definitely a time where you should listen to your own body and do what is right for you. And for me, and for many of my friends, kava has been a godsend. And so that is why I'm here doing what I'm doing, is because in some ways I'm like an evangelist, you know? I'm just like, I just feel like people should know what it is and it should be in your toolkit. It doesn't have to be something that you drink all the time. It doesn't have to be something that you're going to like, oh, well, this is my thing now. Now I'm a kava guy like Morgan, right? But it can be something where when Kara, you're with your friends and you want to relax with them and they want to have a drink with you and you're just like, "You know what? Alcohol just doesn't do it for me. I don't want that anymore. I don't need that in my life. It makes me feel like crap. It's going to make me feel like crap tomorrow." You should have an option for something that's going to help you wind down and relax without those issues. You should not have to sacrifice your health, whether it's mental or physical, because of peer pressure.
Yeah.
That's dumb, right? And why our society's like that, I don't know. But it's something, and who knows? Maybe you doing that, you saying, "Hey, I'd love to have a drink with you. How about we try this kava instead of your alcohol?" Maybe that would turn into something beautiful for your
Yeah.
friends too. I don't know.
Yeah.
It could not. I've introduced so many people to kava, I can't even tell you. And a lot of people, it's just not what they want. And that's fine. But at least you have the option,
Yeah.
you know? That's, yeah.
I'm definitely intrigued and definitely,
Yeah, I'm
we
like
are gonna get some kava,
yeah.
and, I
I
want
can make that
and we've
happen.
been moving away from alcohol and that substance and trying to be more mindful of what we ingest. So I think
Ingest.
ingest. So I think kava is on our radar, especially after researching it just a little bit. We haven't thought about it since we tried it in Florida.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
but she definitely got sick on it, and I didn't even remember that we had tried it that one time. So it did
Yeah.
nothing that stuck with me.
I mean, the thing I hear stories like that and it kind of makes me, to be very frank, it makes me angry
Yeah.
because what that means is that someone gave you a product that was not good quality.
Yeah.
It was not something that is a good thing. And
To be
I
fair,
mentioned earlier,
I could have been intoxicated, hungover, and dehydrated, all of the above.
Well,
In
the
all reality, we were partying in
it could have,
Florida.
and the one thing,
yeah,
my son was going to school there, but the one thing is that it was probably in 2013, so it
It's
was
around the same time you were looking for it, I think. Yeah.
yeah,
there
so
you go.
it was
Okay,
a
yeah,
long time
It was a
ago.
long time.
So it sounds
you're
like
probably not
it's
wrong.
improved since then.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%. I mean, like 1,000%. Yeah. I mean, back then you couldn't find kava that was ever sent to a lab to be
Yeah.
tested for pathogens, let alone sterilized to make sure that there are none.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that you're probably not wrong. Right. If you'd been out there drinking a bunch or taking who knows what, right,
Yeah.
or just dehydrated, right, kava is probably not the greatest thing to drink when you're
Yeah.
dehydrated. It is a diuretic, so it will make you pee a little bit more than usual. So it probably exacerbated kind of how you were feeling, is my guess. But it also, like, I've just heard that story so many times, and it it, it drives me crazy though because kava is a very special thing, and I think it can really help a lot of people. So when you introduce something new to people and they have a poor experience because the quality of that product is bad, then it paints a negative light on that forever, right? That was 13 years ago where you tried it, and yet you're still like, "Ooh, that's not for me," right?
Yeah.
So it's only my conversation with you where you're like, "Oh yeah, maybe I should try that again," right? Because it was a negative for you, and I really hope that more people will take it seriously, and so that it can be more positive. But it might be it's a pipe dream. I don't know.
I don't think so. I think that the conversation around this topic in general on a larger scale is really changing. People are being aware that, their doctors are prescribing them pharmaceuticals and then they have to take another pharmaceutical for their symptoms. And, it just
Or the
becomes
side
this, or the
effects.
side effects. Yeah. All of the above. And it just becomes this big now all of a sudden. I mean, myriad of health problems. We got multiple people in our lives that are taking like dozens of pharmaceuticals a day. And if they had a more natural solution in the very first place, the conversation wasn't there. And then there's a larger conversation coming around mental health. And so
Mhm.
when we're talking about mental health and people are starting to realize that they're struggling with things that they didn't realize that they were struggling with, they just thought it was normal because they've had it their whole life. And then they go to talk to their doctor and they're being prescribed pharmaceuticals that they've never had to take before. Just having this conversation of there are other options out there to help take the edge off, to help you feel good, to help you get your mind straight. I mean, one of the things that I have been finding recently, and you've listened to one of our most recent episodes where we're really going through a lot right now, of trying to stay on task, stay on point, and keep moving forward with our dreams. And sometimes you get into that like emergency mode, that fight or flight kind of mentality. Even though there's no bear chasing you, how are we going to survive to the next week? You're just not thinking straight anymore. So sometimes having a way to take that edge off so you can calm down and get back into that, it was the parasympathetic mode where you are relaxed and you're in that rest and digest space where you can start to think clearly again instead of having that tunnel vision. Your vision can open up more. You can perceive more opportunities, more options. And it sounds like Kava is just one of those things that can really just help you take a deep breath and be more present in the moment, more present with the people that you're with. And your life isn't such an emergency anymore.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that that's huge. Why do we feel like the only thing that we can go to is either gonna be some pharmaceuticals, alcohol, or weed?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah.
What is the deal there, right? I feel like the root of the problem is rarely the substance.
Yeah.
It's something else that's going on, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a financial issue in your life or a relationship issue in your life or a living situation or whatever it is, right? There's stresses, right, that come at us, and those stresses, there's a myriad of ways that you can deal with them, but the vast majority of the time, the best way to deal with it is to have your brain be capable of working through it.
Mhm.
And when you drink something like alcohol or you're using something like weed that makes you just forget it's going on, that doesn't help. It just makes the problem just go away for a couple of minutes, and then it comes back, and it comes back just as clear as it was the day
With a
before, right?
hangover.
With a hangover. Yeah, so you feel like crap and you still have the problem, right? And so I just feel like kava for me personally, right? I'll tell you my daily ritual. I shouldn't say daily, but close to daily, right? I drink kava often. Is I love it when the house is quiet and my wife is off reading her books and my kids are in their beds and the house is quiet and I have a couple of minutes. I take my kava, I put it in my bowl, my strainer bag, and I just start kneading my kava in the bowl, and it's just quiet. And I'm not watching TV, and I'm not on my phone, I'm not working, and I just have a couple of minutes with myself just to just decompress and go, okay, what is going on? What do I got to think about? Like I kind of, I'm a nerd. I'm a tech nerd, right? So I always think it's like re-indexing my brain, right? It's like some sort of a kava meditation in a lot of ways. Just preparing the kava. I haven't even consumed the kava at that point, right? I'm just trying to like think about what's going on in my life, I feel like so many people feel like they don't have 10 minutes to just not do anything.
Mhm.
And I think it's I think you have to. You have so a lot of customers will come to me and say, "I don't have 10 minutes to prepare my kava." I'm like, "I don't look, I that's fine. That's like I understand it. We sell some instant products where you can mix it into your kava, but personally, I feel like if you don't take those 10 minutes a day, then you're not doing yourself any favors. You can make 10 minutes a day. You just have to make the effort to do it. But for me, it's like my reset.
Yeah.
And then after my reset, I can drink some kava. you know, my shoulders get a little bit lighter and I can just kind of sit on the couch and just relax. Right. So that's, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I think that people need some time just to really, deal with the issues
And I
and
love
not
too
forget
what
about
you're
them.
talking about with that moment, that 10 minutes where you're kinda resetting, recalibrating. Um, there's a lot of talk in the more woo-woo world that we live in.
Sure. Yeah.
Intentionality behind, when you're cooking a meal, for example, cooking it with love and all of that, it will pour through. If you're hating what you're doing, that's gonna go into what you're feeding yourself. So having that kind of intentionality, you talked about the indigenous practices and in and around kava for centuries. Those plants are still living pieces of those plants from 3,000 years ago. So when you think about the intentionality behind those plants, all of that history, all of that beauty that transfers through each and every plant as you take that cutting and go into the next plant or turn it into the next plant, and then your intentionality behind preparing your kava. I mean, it really is a ritual that's 3,000 years in the making, and I think that is what a beautiful practice to take into your daily life. I'm, like, so inspired right.
I'm really glad because a lot of people don't understand that, right? That like, and now if we're getting into woo woo, I'll give you a little bit more woo woo, right? So Mike was one of my best friends, and he was inspiring to me, and he was like he was someone that I just really just I couldn't get enough of him. And when he had those plants in Hawaii, he sourced those plants. He had to go find people out on the island to find those plants, and he got the dirt, and he was in the soil, and his blood, sweat, and tears was in that soil. And when you go to nearly any Polynesian, Melanesian, or Micronesian kava ceremony, one of the very first things that they talk about is that they respect and they honor their ancestors. And when I talk about kava, I'm talking about Mike. I'm talking about all those people for 3,000 years that did this. That like we're so when we talk about kind of woo woo stuff, I'm literally saying when I'm drinking kava, I'm I'm drinking the people that brought this to us, right? And I'm not a particularly spiritual guy, but I do feel like there's some form of spiritual energy in kava itself that is from those people. And I feel like in some crazy way that there's a reason why kava helps people and why it doesn't make people turn into zombies. It's because it's the people that brought it to us.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. But that's crazy. I get it. I get it.
Are
Probably
crazy.
sounds like some real woo woo stuff,
It's
but that's how I feel.
but it's I mean, we could go down the rabbit hole of quantum energy and how science proves that this is all possible and real.
You're way too smart for me. I don't know what you're talking about.
But it is, and and like you said, it's not the wheelhouse in which you believe in, but you feel like it's true, and that's enough, and that's all that matters, and, it's a legacy, and it's, again, not only just Mike, but the 3,000 years of people who have been cultivating this plant by hand, and the original plants are still what's living, the trimmings of which just keep growing, and I just think, what a beautiful what a beautiful practice. I think that's amazing. I really love that.
I think it's crazy that there's no seeds and it's been passed along for
Yeah.
3,000 years just by clipping it and putting it in dirt. That by itself is amazing.
Well, it should tell you that it's really important to those people, right? If the plant was just like any other plant, they, sure, maybe it looks pretty, but if it didn't provide them, I mean, okay, imagine you're a Polynesian voyager. You're like, this island sucks. I want to go find a different island, right? You don't know where you're going. You don't know how long you're going to be at sea. And you have to bring supplies enough for who knows how many months you're out there on sea trying to find some new land. And what is important to you, right? You're probably never going to go back to the island that you came from. What is important to you? You're going to bring food. You're going to bring some taro, maybe some cassava. You're going to bring some medicinal plants that might help you with, maybe some cuts or bruises or something. And you're going to bring kava. That's how important kava was to them.
Yeah.
It's it's mind blowing that they did that.
Yeah.
Mind blowing.
Yeah. It was amazing.
So, if people want to buy kava directly from you, do you have a storefront or is it mainly you just distributing it from online orders?
Yeah, so we primarily sell, this on Amazon or through our website, kalmwithkava.com. It's Kalm with a K. We also have, very soon here, the farm in Hawaii will be producing, fresh frozen Hawaiian ava, so it's never been dried before. That'll be available soon on puiwahawaiianfarms.com, or kalmwithkava.com as well. So, yeah. And then, of course, you can check out our socials, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We have, all those channels as well. And so you can check out our website from those as well if you're on those social platforms.
Perfect. And we'll be sure to tag you and everything and have all the information in the show notes. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would like to make sure that our listeners got out of this conversation today?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that people understand that kava isn't weird. I know that we've been talking about some woo woo stuff. I really liken kava to coffee in the afternoon. It's just it's a very intense chamomile, right? It's not something that's weird. It's not something that's going to turn you into a weirdo. It's not going to be like, you're not going to see, things on it. It's not. So, a lot of people make out kava to be all sorts of different things that it's not. And it's a relatively benign, relaxing beverage that might be something that you can add to your repertoire. That will be a good safe thing. That you're also not going to be concerned if your kids are around while you're drinking it. It's just a nice relaxing time, right? So I just want people to understand that it's a good safe alternative to a lot of things that you might not want to have in your life anymore.
Love it. Thank you. Did you have anything else?
Nope.
All right.
Pretty good.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Morgan. This has been a beautifully enlightening conversation. We've enjoyed it thoroughly and definitely look forward to trying to connect with you in the future. Sometime maybe we can meet up in Phoenix or elsewhere.
I'd love it. I would absolutely love it. Thank you so much for having me.
We
Absolutely.
wanna meet up in Hawaii
Yeah,
at the
right.
Big
There we
Island.
go.
Whenever you want, I'm in.
Alright. Thank you so much
All
for
right.
joining.